Hello, everybody. Today I'm joined at the UK Games Expo by Nicola Twiston Davies, and she is here to talk all about game plan. However, before we get into that, it's a pleasure to have you here, even virtually, at the Expo.
Thanks, Gerry. It's obviously really great to be here, even if it is virtual.
So before we get stuck into game plan and what it's all about, I'd like to know a bit about you and your sort of your background, where you've come from in gaming, because that's always interesting for people to know.
Definitely. Well, so I'd say actually I was brought up with games, as I think maybe a lot of us were. My love for games started with cards. I played a lot of cards with my family, and it sort of flourished since there. And I think my real appreciation and recognition of how wonderful games are maybe started like early 20s when I started running to a wonderful old lady in Whitechapel. I used to go sit with her to keep her company once a week. It was sort of part of an initiative to stop people from being lonely and encourage people to go out and exercise.
Sure.
So yeah, tapped into that. And I actually ended up taking a few games to play with her because we sort of ran out of conversation. And actually it was incredible, like an 85-year-old woman who doesn't really know a 20-something-year-old woman as well. And actually we really connected over those games. And from there, I was lucky enough to work at a really lovely company called Big Potato Games, where I was hired as a freelancer to set up their corporate team building hosting side of things. So going into places with their wonderful, wonderful games and turning them to something much bigger and like that can be run sort of, I don't know, like 75 people at one time, and bringing them all together and having some fun with them. And as you can imagine, it was pretty, you have people resist, people think, oh, a game. And we turned it into something that actually people would never sit out of. So that was really good fun.
It's fascinating. I've started to see this more and more where people are using games, board games, and even war games for team building exercises. And whenever I had to go on team building exercises in the past, it was trying to build a barrel raft or something like that. It was more sort of physical. But I think when you look at the sort of things that we play for our own hobby benefits, they are much more in-depth and intuitive and require the sort of skill sets that companies probably want to develop in their staff more than being able to tie a knot around a blue barrel to make sure that it holds somebody up while they paddle out. So do you think that the games play a more integral part then with the likes of team building and that sort of thing now than perhaps had been looked at in the past?
I'd say so. I know I'm biased, but I do think so. I think it's a less forced way of encouraging people to actually still connect. With play in general, one of the many benefits, you alleviate stress and it releases endorphins, and it does connect people. There's this wonderful woman actually called Jane McGonigal, and she did a very good TED talk about play and the benefits and how even going through an experience, whether it's cooperative or not, with another person that is a game, you almost start mirroring their body patterns and their movements, and you've therefore shared that experience. So I think if you can do it in a way that doesn't make people feel like, oh, I don't want to do it because it's sort of forced fun that way, and actually you're easing them into a really recognized structure of game, and it's a really wonderful, effortless way of bringing the best out in people for sure.
I suppose that brings us on to why you're involved with UK Games Expo this year, and that is game plan life coaching. So this is a development of your own from that sort of team building exercise to segue into actually developing people on a one-to-one basis rather than in groups.
Yeah, so that's how it started for definite. So that awareness of how beneficial play can be. And then in the background, I was doing my transformational coaching qualification, and they've just kind of come together in this beautiful like melting pot of wow, look what this can do for people. And so yes, I've set up game plan life coaching to work with predominantly gamers and creatives and introverts actually. So people that, because I think with coaching, it's all about your rapport with that person. You know,
Sure.
like, do you like them? Do they speak the same language? Do they get you? Do you feel comfortable? And so I've chosen people that I feel comfortable with, and turn so far they've been comfortable with me, and that's, as a result, you get way more out of the coaching space. There is obviously there are a lot of coaches out there, and it's important you find the one that works for you. So yeah, so that sort of brought my segue to one-to-one coaching. And actually I have been working on a group coaching course as well.
All
But
right. Okay.
don't worry, less team building. I definitely don't make people do any icebreakers.
I suppose from the gamer point of view, I know even though it is a social hobby in the main, there is definitely a big overlap between introverts and gamers on that Venn diagram. And a lot of people will often view themselves as introverted too. I suppose there's never a black and white. You're not just an introvert or an extrovert. You'll be somewhere on a range. But we do tend to see more introverted types being involved in various aspects of the hobby, because they are things that can be, I suppose, controlled within a certain extent. So what sort of things would they expect to see working with you and the game plan?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So actually, and this is sort of what inspired me to create the course as well, but one-to-one coaching, we'll stick to that for now. What people can expect from working with me is basically a heightened self-awareness. I've discovered from doing this that actually the more self-aware we are, the more it builds confidence and self-esteem. And a lot of times people come to me because, you know, they maybe want to change job or be happier in their job. Maybe they're dealing with a difficult situation and they just want to be okay with it or change it. And a lot of times those situations actually just, you know, they're manifested in that needing a bit more confidence, or at least a bit more understanding why they want what they want. And then coaching is very much that catalyst. And that's actually why I really love working with gamers. From my experience, I think that we're such visual people, and, you know, there's a lot of like logic, and there's sort of many ways that, you know, if you work hard enough at something, you know, you'll go up another level, or, you know, you'll complete the quest. And often that, like, it's kind of clear where they want to go, and coaching can be that catalyst to sort of unblocking that, you know, the mini boss or the baddie that's in the way of stopping you getting there.
So with the game plan life coaching then, when you're actually developing the sort of format you're going to be working with your clients, do you actually bring a game to the table then and set them up and develop through the play style with them, or is it just a methodology that you've worked out based on previous experience with gaming and gamers?
It's definitely more the latter, I'd say. So the play element is sort of like an inspiration to my work. I suppose a bit like, you know, meditation might be for people that are more driven by like energy work for themselves. So in one-to-one coaching, I don't put a game on the table as much as I'd love to. It's
terrible shame.
You know, maybe when we get to that stage, if someone insists, I'm like definitely open to suggestions. But I'd say it's much more the play or the game side of it is that, as I think I might have like mentioned, so the game, understanding how gamers think and how we approach things, and actually when that level of understanding is applied to things, it makes them much more accessible. So sort of, I suppose, framing it in a different way. So like one of my favorite questions, if it's right, can be, you know, if this was a game, what kind of game would it be? Or like, what kind of player are you being at the moment? So it's sort of that language is inspired by the games, and then seeing how we can engage you with how you want to achieve what you're working on through that player mindset. But it's by no means forced at all. I think what's really, to be honest, and what I'm noticing as well is noticing that it's a space where that language is really understood. You know, like when people feel safe that they can express themselves in a gaming way, if it feels fitting, and, you know, that it's with someone who actually is coming from a similar place.
Yeah, you're not trying to pigeonhole people into archetypes just based on what they last ran in a game of Dungeons and Dragons. Then it's more a case of finding terminology and methodology that works.
100%. Yeah, exactly. And actually, I love that you mentioned D&D as well, because that was sort of, again, something that semi-inspired me on the course I've been creating. That I think the easiest way to think of it is like we're creating that like D&D character sheet for you. And, I just feel like that, like thinking about it like that, it just sort of makes a bit more sense. And it's just a bit less dry than, trying to come up with like a personality sheet that,
Sure.
it's more prescriptive.
And goals and objectives to reach in life are a bit easier to tailor.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
you're defining your own character, I suppose.
It's kind of just about bringing the joy back in, right? Like finding that fun, that elusive fun in the things that we do, and tapping into why we want to do it.
It's a fascinating approach. I'm going to take a quick look at your website. So if people are interested, they can come over to gameplanlifecoaching.com. And this sort of gives people a basic idea of both yourself and Game Plan Life Coaching. So what they can sort of look towards, including some, I suppose, testimonials from people who've already worked with you. Is it a relatively new company that you've set up with this?
Yeah, so I did all sort of the official exterior stuff in September 2020, and it's been going from there. But I've been coaching prior to that. I definitely developed my website development skills the last few months.
It's a good thing about lockdown. People have had a chance to explore whole new aspects.
Definitely, yeah. I've been capitalizing on that. So this is the latest version of the website. I find there's always something you want to change when you see it with fresh eyes. But yeah, so it's officially since September.
And we have here about yourself, the rules you play by. I can definitely appreciate the value of a nap. They seem to be sadly lacking in my life, mind you. But it's nice that people can sort of see the ideas that you base your own sort of life and growth around, and then they can see themselves. Because I know when you are working with somebody, and life coaching is different from therapy, which obviously people should be aware of, but you're opening up to a certain extent, and you're having to work with somebody, so you need to find the person who works best with you, and you don't have that sort of clash of personalities. So it's nice to have an idea of the person you're going to be reaching out to. I suppose if people are looking to get in contact with you, you can book a call with you on the website. But is there a sort of an expected progression? What sort of timescales would people be looking at? Would it be multiple sessions over several months, or would it be shorter or longer, or how do you sort of develop things?
Right. Yes, that's a good question as well. So in terms of how it works, from sort of you pressing that button or sending me an email, we set up a call that you choose for a day and time that works for you. And we have a 30-minute chat. So that chat is a part coach opportunity. So like 15, 20 minutes, we can talk through what it is that caused you to click the button in the first place that you want to get coaching around. And so you can experience, like you say, what it is to work with me. And also it's an opportunity for both of us to ask the other one questions to understand, as you've correctly pointed out, the difference between coaching and therapy, and just to take the opportunity as well there. So coaching tends to be sort of more actions focused and like future looking.
Yeah.
And so taking who we are now and using that knowledge to go to where we want to be, rather than sort of reflecting and dissecting things that we're trying to understand from the past. It's very, very basic. And I really encourage people to do a bit more research if they want to understand it in more depth.
Sure.
But obviously, therapists and counselling tend to be sort of more medical professional. So from that call, if everyone's happy and wants to go forwards, it's what I recommend is sort of meeting once every fortnight, once a week or once every fortnight, because the momentum is really important. Another really great part of coaching is it introduces accountability. So it kind of is that person who's like cheering you on from the sidelines, who wants to hear how it's gone, and wants to make sure that the thing you said you wanted to do, that we're working towards that. It, definitely not someone who's going to be sort of telling you off or anything like that. It's much more we're a team, and we want the same things that you want to get. So it creates that And then just in terms of quantity, it really depends on sort of what you're wanting to get out of it. Typically find like some people 3 sessions has been amazing. I work with a really, really awesome gamer who he was looking for a change of job. And it just, it's quite a dry process. It can be really prolonged and tiresome, but we actually compared it to one of his favorite games, and we changed it. Each stage became a level with a trophy. And honestly, we had 3 sessions and he'd got the job. So I think minimum 3 sessions tends to be good. 3 to 6 is the typical.
And you were saying earlier that you've also started working on sort of group sessions as well, or rather than just one-to-one. Are they specifically aimed at particular groups of people? In that, would it be like a group of friends or a family group, or is what sort of way, or is it in a sort of a round table sort of conference with people who may be strangers to each other but just working group wise that way?
Yeah, round table for sure. I love the idea of people maybe already like group of friends doing it. There's definitely no reason why it wouldn't work at all, because obviously that level of understanding is there. I think what's important with the coaching space is obviously it's completely confidential and it's judgment free. So the complicated part, I guess, if they're coming with preconceived relationships, is that stays in place.
Yeah.
But
it's easier to let the mask slip with people you aren't familiar with.
Exactly, yeah. And actually, it's been amazing, the group that we've been running it with now, like the bonds that have been formed. And, I run a Discord that supports that group coaching. So we've got the space to communicate when we're not meeting within those video calls. So the reason I created this is because I noticed there's some recurring themes, I suppose, I've had in clients the last year. And in coaching, because obviously it's your space and you bring something you want to talk about, it's really, really helpful on an individual level, but there's not necessarily as much sort of what they call like psychoeducating. So there's awareness of tools that actually sometimes you can bring into your life that maybe help you reframe things or support you. So this is much more around like, this is the framework. So it's a lot more sort of rigid in terms of structure. And this is what we're going to cover. And then using that time to then discuss it and apply it and see how we can use it with the aim. So it's called the game plan method. So like I said at the beginning, actually, like building self-awareness so we can start working on that confidence and self-esteem, and then applying that to what we want to achieve. So that adventure, as I like to call it, rather than the goal that maybe other people refer to it as. And having sort of a loose game plan that is really, really bespoke to you, that you've created for yourself, but within that group setting.
It's fascinating stuff.
Thank you.
I hope some people watching this reach out to you. Obviously, this could be of great benefit depending on what you want to get out of it. It's one of these things where you get as much out as you put in, I suppose. So if people are interested, definitely go over to gameplanlifecoaching.com, reach out to Nicola and hopefully get the ball rolling and level up, move on in the world and get better at doing it. It's been a pleasure to speak to you during this UK Games Expo, Nicola, and hopefully I'll speak to you again.
Thanks, Gerry. It's been a pleasure talking to you too. Enjoy the expo.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.